Blessed greetings, everyone, and welcome to the brand new WSLM Radio Ministry Podcast with Pastor Vince. That's our new name, the WSLM Radio Ministry Podcast with Pastor Vince. That's what you'll have to type in moving forward to pull up this podcast. So glad to be back with you all. I know it's been a very long time since I shared anything with you, any messages. The last time I shared a message with you all was back in April of this year. And at that time, I was saying basically that I was experiencing some health challenges, and I was explaining that I had not been on in such a very long time before April. The last time I was on before April was late last year, like November of last year. And so there was a span of time from November of 24 to April of 25 that I had not shared any messages. And I wanted to jump on in April to let you know, what was going on and, kind of give you an idea, just to let you know that, hey, the podcast is still here. The ministry is still here. And that I had an upcoming surgery and so forth and so on. And since then, I've had the surgery. All went well, praise God. And now it's time to get back on my feet as far as my personal health is concerned. It's also time to get caught up on those medical bills too, because they're coming in like crazy. But that's for another day. That's for another conversation. But that's what is going on with me right now as far as my personal health. You could probably tell from my voice. My voice is very scratchy. Hey, it's probably the change of seasons, the weather's changing, whatever. So please excuse my scratchy voice. I'm going to try not to speak too long because the longer I speak, I'm probably going to cough at any moment, and I don't want to cough, during this message if I can help it. So I'm sure you'd understand if that happened, but I just want to let you know that that's what's going on with my voice right now. Yeah. So moving forward, this ministry is heading in another direction. And I want to get into more detail in this message, but as I said, I don't want to speak too long because I'm gonna, probably cough during the message, and it's gonna, disrupt the message and whatever. But we'll see how far we can go. This ministry is going in another direction. If you're brand new to this podcast, thank you for joining us. Again, you are listening to the WSLM Radio Ministry Podcast with Pastor Vince. And our tagline or our motto is still, we are outreach driven. And that's actually our tagline for Sacrificial Lamb Ministries, because the WSLM Radio Ministry Podcast with Pastor Vince is a global outreach ministry of Sacrificial Lamb Ministries, where our motto is, we are outreach driven. So if you're brand new, thank you for joining us here on this podcast. As I was starting to say, Sacrificial Lamb Ministries itself, we're going in another direction. That will be reflected through the podcast in terms of, the types of messages that you'll hear moving forward. Still working on some things, still working out the kinks or whatever. So it may be just a little while longer before you hear actual content pertaining to the direction we're going in. I'll say it that way. But let me just give you a brief description of where this ministry is headed. If you go to our YouTube channel and you click up at the top somewhere, you can click on a description or whatever, the same information is there. And if you're listening to this podcast, say on Spotify and what's the other one? Apple Podcasts, and there's others out there. You'll see this exact or a similar description up there as well. But I'm in the process of making some changes to who's going to be hosting this podcast moving forward. I was using Spotify from day one when we started this podcast back in January of 2021. That's how long this podcast has been around, since January of 2021. And sometime last year, I think it was, I had switched to Podbean or whatever, and I canceled Podbean, so now I'm making my way back to Spotify. I'm making this message. As a matter of fact, I'm making this message so I could be able to activate the RSS, and so I can connect the RSS to YouTube and the other platforms. So I'm sorry for all the technical jargon, but if you know anything about RSS and all that kind of stuff, you'll know what I'm talking about. But anyway, let me just read this brief description of where this ministry is headed, and this way you have a better idea of what's happening here at Sacrificial Lamb Ministries and how we're going to be, reflecting these changes through the podcast as well. So the WSLM Radio Ministry Podcast with Pastor Vince is a global outreach ministry of Sacrificial Lamb Ministries where Vince Wilson, MDiv, MS, is the founder. Pastor Vince is currently rebranding Sacrificial Lamb Ministries to focus primarily on mental health care by offering coaching services for individuals, couples, and groups. Topics regarding mental health care will be presented and discussed via the podcast as well. Besides providing mental and emotional support to cancer patients, survivors, and their families, Pastor/Coach Vince is currently training to become a certified mental health coach with specialties in addiction and recovery, marriage and family, and military and first responders from Light University, while aspiring to become a licensed marriage and family therapist. So that is where we're headed right now. I wanted to let you know that's where we're headed. And as I continue to make the changes, the technical changes behind the scenes, you'll be able to listen to this brand new or this rebranded, if you will. I guess you can call it rebranded. The podcast is being rebranded because the podcast is a part of Sacrificial Lamb Ministry. So when we're talking about rebranding or restructuring, we're talking about everything under the umbrella of Sacrificial Lamb Ministry. So I'm going to end it there. Thank you for listening. Continue to plug in, and please remember that from now on, when you go to YouTube, when you go to Spotify, when you go to Apple Podcasts and the others, please type in the WSLM Radio Ministry Podcast with Pastor Vince. You have to type in that entire thing. Now, maybe when you type in, if you were to just type in the WSLM Radio Ministry Podcast, it still may come up. But what may happen is it may bring up two options, because I'll just call it the old podcast. The old podcast may still be up there. So in order to listen to the brand new podcast, you have to type in with Pastor Vince. It's hard for me to explain right now. I don't know how it's going to work out. I know with YouTube, I won't have to create a brand new channel. I don't want to have to create a brand new channel. So it looks like I won't have to do that with YouTube, but with the other platforms, this may end up being a brand new channel on those other platforms. So to listen to the old episodes, going way back to 2021, you may have to go to the old channel. But to listen to the new channel, you have to listen to today's episode on October 22nd, 2025. You have to listen to today's episode and all episodes moving forward, because everything that I record from today and moving forward will be on the brand new channel. However, on YouTube, it'll still be on the one channel, if that makes sense. Anyway, I'll do my best to let you all know how things work out. Once I get the kinks worked out and all the technical stuff worked out, I'll come back and let you know exactly how you can pull up this brand new channel. And I'll just call it a brand new channel. It's the same channel, but you know what I'm saying. As far as looking it up on the platforms, you may have to look it up differently on the other platforms, but it'll still be the same on YouTube from what I understand right now. All right. So anyway, I'm going to leave you. Have a great day. Be blessed. And we'll talk again real soon by God's grace. Okay. All right. Take care.